All right. Welcome, Claire. Shamilla Yi. Is that what I can pronounce it as? The whole thing? Or is
Yes.
Claire okay?
Claire is absolutely perfect. My whole name is a bit of a mouthful, so let's keep it easy.
It's a beautiful mouthful. And so yeah, welcome, Claire, to the Susma podcast, where we talk about all things crystals and spirituality and wellness. I feel so grateful that everything aligned for me to now have my turn at being able to hear your, I don't want to say story, but your words to how you have arrived at this beautiful place. Your life seems magical when I look at it. Your posts on Instagram seem magical. Your view seems magical, and the way that you shine just feels so magical. And so hence your title for your podcast, Rock Your Magic. I feel like there's a lot of information to be learned about from you, and would love to just open the space up for you to share.
Thank you, Susan. It's such a delight to be here, and your podcast is just about all the things that I love. So I'm just so excited to talk with you about it today, because it's just my favorite thing to do.
Yes, I know. That's the thing. We love to do what we love to do, and that's how life can just be like effortless for us. I'm so happy that you love it too. Thank you.
Yeah, so good. So a little bit about my journey. I always find it funny to try and answer this. It's like, where do you start and what bits do you include and what's, but I think
I'd love to hear where you started, or I can even pull it out of you bit by bit, because I think that it's this unfolding, right? And so maybe we could start with, I would love to start with how you found your way to even start to seek a seeker.
Such a good question. I think so. When I was a child, and I think as so many children do, I loved spending my time playing in the backyard. I would be feeling the fairies. I don't know that I necessarily saw the energy of fairies, but I just knew that it was magical. I knew that, and I would love finding like rocks that or bits of ground or trees that were covered in moss. Moss to me was so magical, and I just used to feel like, there'd be fairies living in there. And so as a child, I was so connected with the earth, and it was just such a special experience for me. Not that I really appreciated how special it was at the time. I just loved being in nature and feeling that energy, that magical energy in nature as a child. And I used to daydream a lot. And then I remember one day I was at school, primary school, and I was sitting on the benches outside the classroom, and my two friends were with me. And then the next thing I remember is I woke up from a daydream, and suddenly my friends were gone. And it was like such a shock for me, because I didn't even, when you're in a daydream, you don't realize you've gone into it until you come out of it sometimes. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Sometimes the scene has shifted, and my friends had gone. And so I think at that point I shut off from a lot of the daydreaming and the sort of tuning in to magic, because something in that experience. And I remember the rest of that lunchtime, I walked around trying to find my friends again, and I couldn't. And I felt really like lonely, and I, kind of confused, like, did they know they were leaving me? They probably didn't. They probably were just like, let's go and do this, and ran off. And I was just still sat there. But that sort of stopped a lot of that connection with my magic at that point. And it wasn't, I was at that age anyway, where it wasn't really encouraged to, play with fairies and use your imagination. And that wasn't really sort of something that was talked about anymore. Kids get to a certain age and they get sort of, it's not the appropriate thing to do anymore, or to foster in a child anymore, I suppose. And then my seeking journey began again when it was in my early 20s, I think. I had a few experiences through my teen years that were sort of connected to energy, and they were curious, but they sort of fleeting experiences. But then when I was in my early 20s, I started to get interested in energy and things like that again. And so I started to, when I lived over in London, I trained as a Reiki practitioner. I was teaching in a primary school over in London. That's what I trained as a primary teacher. And when I was there just teaching, I was like, there's more that I want to do. There's more I want to explore. So did my Reiki training, and then did a crystal healing workshop as well over in London. And just starting to do those things, yeah, it was amazing. Starting to do those things and reconnect with the magic of feeling energy and the magic in crystals. And then I would go to like crystal shops or, new age shops. They're not really even called new age shops anymore, are they? That's like, that was new age back then, but now it's like the age, I think now, interestingly. But now. Yes. And so I'd love going into those shops, and, I bought a few oracle card sets and some crystals and things each time I'd go in there, and just loved sort of tapping into those times where I would be using Reiki or with, choosing new crystals and feeling the energy of crystals, and being just in the energy of those stores activated something in me where once I started along that path, I couldn't shut it off anymore. It just kept calling me back and calling me back. And it was like this, it just had this draw to keep, exploring more and keep moving along that path and finding more out. I think finding more out about myself was the biggest kind of thing that I got out of it, because I was opening up a whole part of me that I hadn't known since I was a child. So that's the long answer to your question.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that you were a teacher too. You started off as a teacher as well.
Yes.
And gosh, isn't that amazing how now you are still a teacher in a sense, as maybe a spiritual teacher, a spiritual coach. And as we know, there's so many little things that lead us to getting to that part of moving from teaching children to kind of learning about ourselves, then teaching ourselves, and then teaching other adults who may have the same kind of calling. And so I'm curious, at what point did you find, the courage, the insight to begin a business out of it?
Well, I think training in Reiki and then coming back, and then I did EFT training. So all of the trainings that I did, I ended up becoming certified as a practitioner in these trainings, even though I wasn't doing it to get a job out of it. I was still teaching. But I was
God. you are such a teacher. It's like, we just want to learn everything.
Yes.
I don't want to make money necessarily. I just want to know everything.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? Teachers just love to soak up all the knowledge. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
I just had to mention that. I love
Yeah,
teachers.
yes. I've just got this, I love learning. I just love learning new things. I'm always buying online courses, and it's like, I want to learn that, and I want to learn that, and I want to learn that. It's so cool. And I have to be careful just to slow myself down and just learn one thing properly before I go on to the next one. But to come back to your question, I think, doing these trainings, and then slowly as I did them, I'd meet people who were using these modalities in their work. And so I think, yeah, I just kept sort of doing these trainings and meeting more and more people. And it started to shift that idea in me that, okay, maybe I could start to do this for a job. And then then I had my first, in 2008, my husband and I moved over to Melbourne, moved from New Zealand to Melbourne. And I trained as a life coach. And then also I trained as another training, a Psych K practitioner. And it was when I did the life coaching training, that was the point where I was like, I actually want to do this for a job. I'd got to a point in my teaching career that I knew that I didn't want to keep advancing through as a teacher so much, but my passion was, because instead of wanting to like teach maths, I wanted to teach the kids about energy and the universe and the law of attraction. I was like, but I've got to teach maths, but I don't want to. I want to teach them about the magic. Yeah. So that's when I decided to go and do the life coaching training and continue that path. And I really got into doing a business for my own after that. And then I had my second child, and things sort of slowed down because I just really I didn't want to be putting them both in daycare and things and going off to work. So I spent, many years with them as a mother, just kind of doing bits and pieces of my business here and there. And now that the kids are older, I've, kind of able to spend more time and things on my business. But yeah, it's kind of just been following the breadcrumbs along the journey, being inspired by others.
Yes. And so I would love to know, just because I think it's from spiritual business woman to another spiritual business woman, curious to hear what made you in that certain program. What was the click or the key that unlocked for you to say, I can do this for my life? Like I heard you talk about this, what shifted for you teaching in the classroom. I heard you mention that shift. But I'm curious what that spiritual teacher coach brought that gave you this clearer portal, you know what I mean? Like to really become firm in your next step. Do you know? I don't know if it's possible to have the one key, but if there was anything that you can remember.
I feel like for me, apart from that experience of, so when I had our second baby, I definitely knew so that was a point where I was like, okay, I don't want to put them in daycare. I want to create a life where I, don't have to go to work, drop them off somewhere. So that was like the one big sort of point in my life. But I don't know that there's been any other huge momentous points where I've just become really clear. In my journey, it's been it's been a roller coaster actually of like,
Oh, I love this.
yeah, the clarity, yes, this is it. And then, no, this is not it. And then, oh yes, this is it. And then, no, this isn't quite it. You know, just exploring. And then when I'd get that clarity, I'd be like, right, I could, you know, create this program or do this. But then I'd start exploring it and it would be like, no, that's just not quite right. And so then I'd kind of go back to the drawing board. And also I'm somebody that always needs to be doing something new. And creating, like, I love change. I really thrive on change and always being in the creator energy. I get very bored with something that just stays the same. And so it's been very much an exploration and a, like, you know, a journey to, and I'm still not there. I don't even know where there is.
Right.
Like, I think I'll always be like that because it's just part of who I am. And in a way, it's part of my strengths as well, because I don't stay fixed in things for long. And that's been in itself, that's been a journey just to accept that part of me, because I could easily beat myself up around it. Like, oh, why can't I just do one program, have a signature program, stick with it, stick with that for life, which a lot of people do. But I get bored.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And also, I just heard that from another teacher that sometimes as a coach, you're merely a mirror, and your gifts come out when you're paired with your client or your student. And so I think that is part of what makes you a great coach, is that you can see us, right? You can see us others and our potential and what we need. Whereas it's hard for us to see us it's hard for me to see myself outside of myself.
Yes.
Like when
exactly.
Yes. Like when you gave me that challenge, like you saw exactly what I needed. You were just like, well, why don't you, do this? And I was just prompted by you, and it was just that little whisper of confidence, because obviously you wouldn't have said it if you didn't think I could, right?
Yeah.
So I love this. And also what I'm hearing is your germination process, the growing of your seed, of your offering is the germinating of it can also be seen as something that is still sacredly being born, right? So as the clients show up, then it becomes more defined.
Yes, because you do learn something new about yourself with every person you work with. Well, that's been my experience. Everyone I work with, every interaction I have, I learn a little bit more about myself. And it's through those, and you what you said there before was really, that's what I love in coaching, is being able to see somebody else's potential and hold them in that energy of their potentiality to allow them to then feel it for themselves. So it's already something that's within them. And I love that you use the word seed, because we've all got that seed within ourselves. And that's what I just love to be able to do for people, is to allow them to really feel that potentiality in themselves, to a point where they can take it on themselves and germinate that seed and allow it to grow and thrive and blossom and become this new direction that they're going within their lives. And I've only been able to recognize that I can have the ability to do that through doing it. I never started off the journey kind of knowing I could or would be able to bring that to a session or anything.
Okay, so let's have a moment of full transparency. Because I know that feeling where I am right now, there's no way 10 years ago, I would have been able to say that this is where I'm going to be, any part of it, where I live, who I surround myself with, any of it. But did you have a slight vision of something like this, like something bigger for you, right? You mentioned it. So it's like, we don't really know, but you knew.
I knew. Absolutely. Yes. I knew. I didn't know the fine details of it, but I've always had that knowing that I'm here for more than teaching. Like in the classroom when I didn't want to teach maths anymore, I wanted to teach about the universe. I was like, okay, well, I know I'm not here for teaching the maths. And so it's been those breadcrumbs of, and also, in my spiritual journey and getting to know myself more spiritually, like my energetic self, and getting to know who I am from this energetic perspective it's been this interesting experience, actually, feeling my own potentiality. I can so much more easily see it in others and hold that clear space for others. But like as you said before, it's so hard for us to hold that ourselves, because then the thinking comes in and goes, oh, but da 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 da. And so the journey for me has been growing my true energetic self throughout the years and allowing the truth of who I am to come into more presence in my physical being, to the point where I'm operating more from my energetic self, the self that's connected with the universe, the eternal part of myself, rather than identifying with like my physical past thinking, doubts, limitations, and all those kinds of things that can be sitting there in duality with that feeling of my potentiality as well. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And like, as you were talking about it, for some reason, my mind keeps going back to you with the fairies. And, that disconnect, that kind of shut off. And I wonder what that looks like for you now, you being with the fairies now. I guess the fairies, who are the fairies now? It's so interesting. This is all off the cuff. I'm sorry. I had no idea ask this.
I don't know. That's what I love about these conversations. It's so good. I feel like that's the magic. The fairies are the magic. And as a child, I understood it as fairies. And from whatever reference I got the word fairies, I don't even know. But feeling the fairies as a child and feeling the magic and the moss growing on the rocks and the trees and things, it ignited something in me. And that's why it felt magical, because I could feel the magic in me. And that's the place that I lived as a child. And that's how so many children do live. They are connected with themselves, with their energetic selves, with the magic that's within them. And that's why they so freely will dance around as fairies and, be powerful superheroes and all the incredible things that little ones do. And so it's been this journey to come back to knowing this magic still exists in me, and it's okay to express this magic in me and to know this magic in me. And now it's, to the point where, with the podcast and having these kinds of conversations, I'm just full on putting my magic out there, my sharing my identity as a spiritual kind of person out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care anymore about what people say and what they think and all of that sort of thing. But it's been, a journey to get to that point.
How are you received within the civilian world?
Well,
we love you. We love you all. We love you all. I just mean, even within my family, I noticed this past Thanksgiving, there's certain things that I do that just are different. And so I'm just boys, and a husband and, everything that everyone else has. And so how is it received? Is it normal? I don't know.
Yeah. I think, I've always been a chameleon, very good at fitting in, very good at people pleasing, very good at thinking about the needs of others before my own. And the more stronger I've become in my own knowing of myself as an energetic being having a physical experience, and the more I've dropped my own judgment around what that is and accepted myself, the more it's accepted by others. Because I think it was my own self-judgment of myself that was actually the barrier between me and others and being able to feel at home around others. It was my own perceived barriers, really. My family, I think, already knew I was woo-woo all the time. And now as well, I choose the conversations when I'm in, obviously, that not everybody is interested in having a conversation about crystals and energy and spirituality and that sort of thing. And that's fine. But more and more, and it's still a journey, it's still an unfolding that I go through. But more and more, I am able to stay in my knowing of myself as an energetic being, connected with the universe, connected with the earth, connected with everybody else, because we're all that energy. Yeah. And I just connect with people in that same way as well. I connect with people's energetic selves as well as their physical selves. I appreciate their smiles and their eyes. And I think since I've dropped those barriers myself, I don't have any, well, to my face at least, people don't say, oh, you're really weird. I don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
There's not that barrier anymore.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, yeah. And I hope I didn't, imbue something in the question even. I think I was even more going towards the part that you're so heart-centered. And that's something that's really, really well received, I think, in situations. And I think that was a better way for me to phrase it, yeah, just like the way you connect is so intentional. And even just here on Zoom, you just so how are you doing? I'm interviewing you and you're just asking me, it's just so knowing that I needed to talk. And so I think that's the part that I was kind of getting at, but I didn't word clearly enough. So for example, with your children, or in your parenting style and your family style, has it how has that been? How has that evolved even?
Yeah, well, when I had kids, I was really, my number one goal as a mother, and it still is this same goal, is to keep them connected with their spirituality, with the magic in them, because I knew the journey that I had gone on to reconnect with that magic and all of the undoing of what I thought was true about myself, to get back to that magic. And for them to stay connected with that magic in them, with that part of them, you know, when little kids look at them in the mirror and they're just in awe of what they see reflected back at them. It's so incredible. And they just have this knowing about themselves, that they are powerful, that they are beautiful, that they're magical, that they can do anything in the whole world that they want. And they just love people, you know, without needing any reason why to love them. They just love them. And so my number one, motivation as a mother has been to always just keep that alive in them, and the rest will take care of itself. I'm not like, that's the goal.
Do you have more community like you? The types of schools that I've read about that are available in other countries even have more of a community support system. So I'd imagine it's also a nicer place to have for raising in this sort of spiritual parenting way.
Yeah, I haven't sent my kids to, like, there's Steiner schools or Montessori, you know, there's other school options. And simply just because we don't live close to those kinds of schools has been the reason my kids haven't gone to those schools. But, you know, I think, like, it hasn't been for their schooling, for their education. I'm not too worried about it, because that's just them out experiencing life. And when they can do it, still connected with their knowing of who they are as these magical beings.
Yes.
Life is just an experience, you know, and it's the real world, and they can interact. I think if we'd lived closer to maybe a Steiner school, my kids would have gone there for sure, actually. But it hasn't bothered me that they're sort of in that mainstream experience. But I've seen the benefits of them being connected with their own spirituality, being in those mainstream environments, just through seeing their ability to connect with people in that really incredible way, and to just be so confident in themselves and sure of who they are, that things just seem to come so much more easy to them than I think it might otherwise happen for them if they didn't have that knowing of themselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And also with the Steiner schools, a lot of it is the home. A lot of it is just really establishing the same parameters. Very no to low tech, like logos and things like it's mostly within the home. So I totally get that. And then, with you as an example, how can they not?
No. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's the home life is. School can't really change a child. You know, a school can give them experience of education, but it's not about building the child. That is the parent's job, really, and that's the home environment. And as they're growing up, my daughter's coming into her teen years, and it's just always been so important for me to have that foundation. And so even if, she goes exploring, having her experiences as a teenager and starting to explore the world more and more, I feel like having this foundation will be hopefully so valuable for her, just to keep her to keep them both really kind of aligned with their own values and what's important for them as they make decisions.
Yeah. And also, I would love to know how you come back to that foundation within you. What are
Mm,
your routines that help you continue to remember who you are,
mm,
a busy mom and a busy businesswoman? Just
yeah.
as we wrap it up, I just feel like that's so like helpful for me to learn, and I'm
Yes.
sure listeners would love to also hear anything.
Thank you. Such a great question. And I think the number one thing for me is awareness. And it's the awareness of who am I being moment to moment? Who am I showing up as throughout my day? And that's such a good thing that we can do on the go. It doesn't require sort of having or creating the time and space to sit down and meditate for however long, although I do love that as well. But then life becomes a spiritual practice when I bring my awareness into, okay, who am I being in this situation, whether it's a challenging situation, an amazing situation. Obviously, it's easier to be more of our joyous, connected selves in delightful situations, but just continuing to bring that awareness back to who am I being in those situations allows me to then choose, if I'm not being aligned with, if I'm not living and expressing in alignment with my true self, do I want to? Or do I just want to like mull in this whatever feeling is coming up for me for a while and do that too? So there's never any right or wrong for me. It's always this exploration. Who am I being? How does that feel? Do I want to continue along that way or not? And so, then I'll use other things, like I'll do an energy practice where I'll feel energy. I work with a modality that works with a range of different frequencies of energy that I call upon, and the different frequencies of energy have different purposes. And so that's an amazing way of just reconnecting with my soul essence and being able to share that. Or sometimes if I'm feeling like kind of stressed and wound up, I'll use EFT tapping to just really calm my central nervous system. And yeah, I think that's kind of the main, and I love, practices like appreciation journaling, and just living in that moment of appreciation and the gratefulness of life, and interacting in that way with others too.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I've not heard the two words appreciation journaling. Wow. Would you give me an example? I know you only have a couple of minutes, so I want to use that
Mm.
to really learn and also showcase like what would be a good starter for me tonight if I was to do appreciation.
Oh, such a good question. So it's very similar to gratitude journaling, but appreciation is to me a bit different because it allows me to really access a different part of me in the calling up of who I'm grateful for or what I'm appreciating. And so it allows me to, when I used to do gratitude practice and gratitude journaling, I used to find it hard to access the emotion and the feeling. It was kind of a very much of a thinky kind of an experience for me. And so when I shifted it to appreciation journaling, I was much more able to feel the love in my heart and the love in the, if I'm appreciating somebody else, it was more of a heart connection. And, say appreciating my husband for cooking a delicious dinner, last night, which he did. I'm just kind of recalling a real life example of that. And feeling his heart and the love that he put into seasoning the potatoes, in the yummy way that he did. He's an excellent cook. And the love that he put into that. And then I feel that love in my heart immediately as well. And so I recognize who I am as I'm appreciating him for who he is. And it just, to me, takes the gratitude journaling to a deeper level where I'm acknowledging the part of me that feels that love, that feels that appreciation. And that is the part of me that is my soul essence, and it helps me to tap into this energetic part of me that is who we all truly are. Energy first, physical second. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it does. So instead of just saying, oh, I'm grateful for, so and so, I'm grateful for Bill, I'm grateful for Shannon, it's like appreciating what it is about them that they've done, like something more specific. And you're right, instead of just naming someone, saying that I really appreciate the way Susan hugged me, right? I appreciate the way she stopped me and saw that I wasn't okay, or just like appreciation
Yes.
and
Yes.
putting down those beautiful small moments. What a neat thing to be able to look back at. I love that. Thank
Yes.
you.
Ah, such a pleasure. And I think the key as well is to just to feel the feelings of appreciation in us as well. And for me, that creates the Taurus energy. So it's where we're filling up, we can't give from an empty cup, and we need to, to be in the fullness of life, to always be giving from a full cup. So we're giving from that overflow. And that, to me, is a really beautiful way of being in the overflow, and it creates that sort of Taurus type energy where the energy comes up through us and spills out over the top, and then we're drawing it back in again with that appreciation and filling ourselves back up again, and it's just flowing back out and in, and it's just this constant cycle. And in that way, it's really hard to get burnt out, which can happen to people this time of year, and is a common theme for a lot of women that experience that. And I've definitely experienced that, when I've just been trying to give from an empty cup, and it just doesn't work for anybody. So yeah.
I love this. I love this. Thank you so much for that useful tool. And
It's a pleasure.
thank you so much for sharing about all of the ways that you found magic in your life to lead you to your Rock Your Magic podcast. And I want to tell you that I appreciate all of the ways that you ask the right questions and answer your questions with so much presence and attention of really coming from a place of truth. So
oh, well, I so appreciate you for spending this time with me today, for having me on your beautiful podcast as well, and for your incredible questions that have just touched my heart. And I've got this visual right now of just like heart hugs. That's how I feel when I'm around you. It's just like a big heart hug. So thank you for all of your presence and love.
Claire, thank you. I will be in touch with you soon, and I will also have a moment to catch up with you. I'm going to press pause and stop for all of us, and we will catch up with you on the next podcast.